I'm back in Dallas and I really wanted to make an updated altering video just because the video that I did that I think as of right now is like 120,000 views is a little older. I definitely still use the same techniques, but I just wanted a more in-depth video because I was getting some questions to get like a longer, more in-depth video on it, and I'm doing it right now. So I have these pair of jeans that I thrifted years ago for probably like $2. They are Levi's 501s in a size 38. I don't even need like to unbutton it to put them on. That's how big they are. But they're a little long. They're huge in the back, but the rise is pretty nice and it looks pretty good when I cinch it in. And the thighs fit pretty well, the crotch fits okay. I'm sweating so much because this room does not have AC. I just wanted to quickly go over a good pair of jeans that you should thrift. Ultimately, when I thrift denim, I don't thrift for my size. I thrift for really high quality denim that has a couple parameters that they have to meet so that I will buy them. So pretty much for the most part, all Levi's jeans, men's Levi jeans that are pretty old are really nice. They're really broken in, they're really thick, they're high quality. Even like faded glory jeans, like Walmart brand jeans from like 10, 15, 20 years ago are really nice quality. I'm just looking for a fabric that has a really tight weave that's just a substantial heavy fabric. That's like number one quality that I look for in denim, because ultimately no matter what you do to a pair of jeans, like the actual original make of it is incredibly important. Number two is the length. I personally love floor length denim, so I'm always it's not really hard for me since I'm 5'2", but I always look for denim that's longer than my feet so that I can cut it or hem it. But ultimately, I'm just looking for denim that I can really manipulate the length of, because if you buy a pair of denim that's too short for you, you can't really do anything about it. But if it's too long for you, you have a lot of options. So that's why I always look for that. Third thing, I make sure that the curve of the butt is adequate. By that, I mean the way that I alter my jeans, I don't alter the butt whatsoever. And if you can see, this is where your butt's gonna go. So it goes straight and then it curves into your butt. And if you go the other way, this goes into the crotch, right? So this one's actually kind of a bad example, but typically I'm looking for something with a deeper curve right in here, like probably more like that. Because right now it's a little flatter. Because it's men's jeans, they tend to have a flatter butt. So the back seam is going to be flatter, but I would try to look for denim that has a little bit more aggressive of a curve, because it really does help the overall look of the jeans when you're done with them. It's not that big of a deal. I just personally really like to pay attention to them. And then my last thing that I look for in denim that I'm thrifting to alter is the size. So I'm a 26, 27 waist, and I really don't go over jeans that are a size 40, because I'd say once you hit like 8 or 9 inches, it's just too much fabric to get rid of to have a nice pair of jeans that fit you well. So while you have a lot of flexibility in sizing, because I can go from a men's 32 to 38, which for the most part, denim in thrift stores or denim in general that you buy are in those sizes, so it's not that big of a deal. But I really would warn people against taking out too much fabric, because it's not gonna look as good. It's not gonna look as flawless as it could be. But past that, that's all my parameters for looking for denim in the thrift store. And if you're watching this video just to alter denim that you already have, it's the same exact steps. But I just wanted to put a quick interlude just because I see sometimes like people thrifting and they don't know what kind of denim to buy and don't know what kind of jeans to buy. So I just wanted to include that in this video so that it's clear to everyone. And also, like, it's not the end all be all. If you really like a pair of denim, thrift it, take it to a tailor. I'm sure the tailor could figure it out. But this is just if you're doing it at home with my steps. Anyway, I want to go ahead and continue on with the video because I feel like this has been a fairly long interlude. My first step is always to bring it up so that the rise is as high up as it goes. So you want the fabric in the crotch to be touching the crotch, just like that. I use Crayola markers. You can use chalk, pencil works as well, just anything that washes out of fabric. I really like Crayola markers because I feel like the pigment is really strong, whereas like chalk you can rub off or pencil you can erase off. I'd rather just be able to wash it off, especially with denim where like it is gonna go through multiple wash cycles anyway. But if you're using more like gentle fabric, I wouldn't use a marker because sometimes you really can't wash a lot of this stuff. I don't know if you can see this, but I have my thumb in here, so I just make sure I go on the inside of my thumb. On the same side, I go on the inside of my pointer finger and just mark as needed. It looks like the amount that I'm going to be taking off is just about 7.5 inches, if you can see that marking right there. After I find the particular size that I'm taking out, so I'm taking 7.5 inches out, I'm going to go ahead and take off the waistband. So because I'm taking out 7.5 inches, I'm going to be ripping off the waistband from probably about here all the way around the jeans to about the next bracket up here. If you're only taking out, say, 1 inch to 4 inches, you can maybe get away with 5 inches. You don't have to rip all the way up here. You can just rip it out from this belt loop to this belt loop because you're just going to take the darts in the butt. But because I'm taking out more than 4 or 5 inches, I'm going to be moving this seam right here forward onto the jeans. So I'm just going to show you guys really quick how to do it. You can use any blade. I really like to use X-Acto blades because I just find them to be really easy. I just go in and I pull the tab first. I like to do tabs first just because it's easy. They're straightforward. And I just chop the tab off. See, super simple. That, and then same thing with this guy. Just I just rip it off just until the waistband because I don't need to take it off the waistband. The stitches in denim jeans, for the most part, are something called chain stitches. So all you have to do is find where the stitch begins. And I use like an actual seam ripper for this. So you just need to get like one little strand out. Sometimes I'm really bad at finding the first stitch. Some people are super good at it, at getting that first stitch out. There we are, you see? Once you get it out, you can just rip it and the entire stitch comes out. It's really quite cool. But you do have to start off by going on both sides and cutting it off because if you're not careful, you cut the whole entire seam out. And that is never fun. And then you just flip it over on the other side, grab the thread, and you can just, it's so satisfying. Just like that. You have all the thread out, and the waistband comes off just like that. Next step, I'm gonna pull apart the pockets. And my favorite part about deconstructing jeans is you just get to see the beautiful original denim color that they dyed it before they colored it and washed it. I don't know, it just brings me a lot of joy to see it because, as everyone knows, like denim fades over time, and I just really love to see that original color that the manufacturer decided to go with. And just a tip, I remember to keep the pockets and like make sure you know which one is right and left, because I've gotten in many issues where I don't know. And then some people are really anal and they really like to keep the Levi's logo. I don't really care. It obviously, if you want it to look like perfect, I would keep the Levi's logo on there. And of course you can use like a seam ripper on this step, but I prefer an X-Acto knife just because it's way faster. but I will say you have to be careful because you can cut the fabric and mess up your entire project. I say that from experience because I have done that many times. Yep, it's the Levi's logo. I'm not gonna put it on these jeans. I don't really care that much. There we are. Okay, this angle's a little awkward, so I apologize, but it got really hot in the sewing room because it's literally over 100 degrees outside, and I was not about to deal with that. So, as I said before, it's 7.5 inches that I need to take off, and first step that I do is I measure to see where this bracket is, because you can't sew over metal. No one wants a needle to the eye. So that looks like it's at just about 1 inch. So I'm going to take out 1.5 inches and just mark it all the way up. 1.5 inches. Same thing on the other side. This side doesn't have the bracket, so this side I just do it to make it even. Just like that, mark it all the way up. Next thing is marking the midpoint of this long in between the butt crack and the side. And I just mark the halfway point. It looks like it's 10 inches, so I mark it just at 5. Make it perpendicular to the flat felled seam. And bring it right down. I bring it down basically to the base of the pocket. And then same thing on the other side. What that is going to do when you make it perpendicular to this stitch is that when you fold it in, you can hide your seam really easily. If you're sewing it just straight from where the waistband is, if you see, that seam goes haywire. So I always like to do it perpendicular to there. And I'm taking out 4.5 inches since I took out 3 inches from the sides. So that's going to split out to be about 2.25 in each dart in the back. So I just like to go 2.25. That looks like just about. Okay. And now I draw my dart just all the way down. I eyeballed this to just about 1 inch away from the bottom of the pocket, but it looks like this is just about 9 inches. So I'm going to draw from waistband to the bottom 9 inches. And then making my dart into that space. Just like that. And then I do the same to the other side. This one's kind of hard to see, I apologize. Just make sure it's 9 inches, just about right there. And then since you're going to be sewing on the inside, I feel like it's very important to mark the inside. I used to always forget to do that, and it would not be good. Just a rough estimate. And then we're going to go back to the front. So as I said before, we're taking out 1.5 inches, but we will need to eventually connect it back to the actual pants. So I just like to mark just about at the widest part of my thigh, because you're going in, and then at the widest part of your thigh, it's going to curve back in, right? So I know from experience that the widest part of my thigh is just about 2 inches under my crotch. So I just like to draw that line, mark that. Same thing on the other side, just about 2 inches from the bottom of my crotch, mark that. And we're just going to draw as straight of a line as possible to that 1.5 inch. Same thing on the other side. Those are all my markings for these jeans, and we're going to go back into the sewing room to sew. On second thought, before I go to the sewing room, I'm going to pin everything properly because I'm going to do it there anyway, and I don't want to do it in the hot ass room with bad lighting. So what we're going to do is just use it inside out once again. Also, I'd like to clarify that the first thing that we're doing is we're going to sew the darts. We're not going to seam rip nor sew this part until later. because I always like to make sure that I see the dart well first, because sometimes it just looks real weird. But the first place that I pin, typically, is I make sure that the flat felled seam right at the seam is perfectly aligned, because that's probably the biggest area where mess ups can occur. The darts are in, they're looking pretty good. They don't look very noticeable. And the waist is now staying on. It's not completely falling off. I have to unbutton the jeans to get them on and off now, which is good. But I've noticed that, I don't know if you can see, but it looks a little too baggy going down my legs. I like a good baggy jean, but I feel like these are just a tad too baggy. So I think I'm going to extend this guy, bringing forward this back panel to the front panel, probably down to just about my knee, because I feel like it's looking particularly loose and I do want that fixed. So to redo my marking is pretty simple. Now I want it down to about here. So I'm just gonna take this, continue it straight, and just straighten it all the way down to the seam down here. Next step is seam ripping. These jeans are gonna look mutilated by the end of this, but we're gonna be ripping apart the seam from beyond the point at the bottom, so this is just about my knee, beyond the point probably around 3 to 4 inches, and then all the way up to the waistband on both sides. Watching Criminal Minds while I'm seam ripping, but I went ahead and seam ripped all the way down to where it needs to be. So here's the end, and I seam ripped just 3 or 4 inches more. I went ahead and pinned the pocket to where it's supposed to be because it was flapping all around. And now, because it's seam ripped, I'm gonna go ahead and sew the pockets on while the fabric is exposed. Because once I put on the, sew the sides together, it's really hard to access the pockets. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew it on while this flap is just one piece, because obviously the other side is separated. Okay, so the pockets are sewn on. I just used white thread. Honestly, I don't really care all that much personally if it's denim thread, but if you want it to be like really nice, you should do denim thread. I just personally think people don't really notice. Anyway, here's the closer up look of the hem of the seam right here. You can see just how it fits perfectly, and obviously it's not gonna look perfect, but once you wash it, iron it, it's gonna look better, especially this side. This side, because it had the Levi's logo on it, definitely has this demarcation, but I'm totally good with that. Pockets are in, they are properly placed, aka there's just room, because sometimes when I place my pockets, they're so tight that I can't put my phone in. So I always like to leave like a finger room amount, and then as the jeans move, they stretch out. And right now I'm gonna go ahead and pin front to back, following the red line. Okay, there we are. It is pinned. So as I said before, so this is the red line right here. It goes all the way from the knee up into the waist. And so I just made sure I kept this folded. So this is the original seam right here to right here. As you can see down at the bottom where it's not seam ripped, they just line up very nicely. So I wanted to keep the wash of this so it looked more natural, because if you just sew it straight, you're gonna end up with a seam that looks like this, where it's just denim to denim and there's no like distress But as you can see in this seam right here that I'm sewing, there's some distressing. So I wanted to keep at least one side, and this side, which is the top layer that you see right here, is the one that's more distressed. So I'm keeping that by just folding it over and showing that I have that, and also right in the same stitch line that was sewn earlier. So I just folded it over, made sure that this is touching the red line underneath, and pinned accordingly. Did that to both sides all the way down, and I'm just gonna go ahead and stitch it straight right now. The machine is still turning off, so if you hear like whirling, that's my machine, but it looks super good. Like when I say super good, I mean like this fits perfectly. Pockets, still functional, back pockets, perfect. The butt is a little saggy, but like not horrendous. There's no like super atrocious like V. I hate when jeans go like this, so you have a V when you walk or just stand. The side looks perfect. You can still see that like really irregular wash all the way down. It's super beautiful. You don't see the seam where it starts at the bottom. You can't really see the bottom either, but when I'm on my tippy toes, it hits the ground perfectly. But when I stand, it's definitely dragging on the ground. So that's gonna need to be fixed. But otherwise, it's beautiful. As you can see, because of the way we altered this, the waistband just starts to look super weird. You get little jumps everywhere we stitch. And so with this waistband, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut off until it's even, and then attach the waistband back on. Because the waistband is 7.5 inches larger than the jeans, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how I like to perfectly put it back together, because there's special ways to do it, and I found this one way where it doesn't even look like there's a seam whatsoever, especially when you put the belt loop back on. So I went ahead, took the jeans off, and then from the middle, folded it in half, and then measured the 7.5 inches, and went ahead and marked that in red. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take off this belt loop because we're going to maybe reattach it. I'll assess, because sometimes it gets a little too thick and it won't go through the machine. So we'll have to reassess if we can put this belt loop back on, but for right now, I'm gonna take it off. So the waistband was taken apart. Most of them have stitches up top, so I just went ahead and seam ripped that out and then laid it flat, good side to good side, making sure that when you flip it right side to right side, it's not twisted. I've made that mistake multiple times. And then now I'm just making sure everything is nicely lined up. I'm gonna do a straight stitch down, chop it off, and then I'll show you the next steps. Good side, sewed a straight line so that, I haven't washed the jeans yet, so you're definitely like, there's definitely still marks on it. But as you can see, that hem right there, it's completely, basically seamless, and you can't see it. There's just that one seam. But what that does is if the fabric was too thick and I couldn't have gotten the belt loop on, what this would have done is allowed me to not have the belt loop and have a really clean seam, and it just looks really nice. So that's why I did good side to good side, sewed in half. And then from there, I had the waistband put together. So I just needed to sew them back onto the jeans. Basically, the trick to this is making sure that when you sew on the front, because you're going to be sewing on the front side, that you catch the fabric in the back. Because ultimately it's waistband, jeans, and all three have to be caught in the seam for them to stay together. A lot of the time, sometimes I'll lose either the back or I'll lose the actual jeans and it just falls apart. So it's really tricky when you're getting started, but after a while you get used to it and you can just feel it as you sew. So I just sewed the waistband on, making sure that everything was caught. There's nothing is falling off. Sewed the belt loops back on, just shoved them down and sewed it on. I really did not use fancy thread. I could have used denim thread. I didn't. I was lazy. If you want, oh, look at Callie. She likes to sleep on top of couch cushions. She's moving cushions to be on camera because she's vain like that. I'm joking. But if you wanted to look really nice, you could use denim thread. I just used white thread. I really didn't care. But after that was sewn on, I finished the body of the jeans, basically. Everything put together. It looks beautiful, as you can see. As you can see, jeans are beautifully put together. You can see where I took the darts out of the back. You can see waistband is on. The last thing I needed to fix was the hem. And these were about 1.5 inches too long for me, but I really, really loved the raw hem of the jeans and I didn't want to get rid of them. Traditionally, what I've done is just cut it right off and had a raw hem, but I really, really, really wanted to keep the actual hem of these just because whoever had these before just so beautifully broke them in. You can tell they loved these jeans. They wore them to death on both sides, and I really wanted to stay true to that. So this is my first time ever doing it, and it ended up super nice because you can barely tell. Once I tell you that, like, yeah, I adjusted these, you can tell, but from far away, you can't see it at all. And it's my first time doing it, so I'm not like the most familiar with it. So I'll link below the videos that I referenced and used to do this technique. But basically, so pretend this is like a new pair of jeans that aren't adjusted. I went good side to good side. And then if I needed to take 1 inch off, I would do 1/2 inch folded over and sew right along the hem. And what that does is when you bring it out, the hem is still kept, but as you can see right here, you have some excess fabric. And what I went ahead and did was tacked it down so that when I put on my jeans, they don't like flap around. And it just ended up beautifully. I also top stitched it. Can you see that just really light top stitch right there with thread that was the exact same color as the denim? So up close, you can obviously see that these have been altered, but from far away, you really truly can't tell, which is what I really, really like about them. And I tacked the back a lot because the back is where the heel is going to catch on. The front, not as much. I only did 2 tacks. But the great thing about fabric thread, so this is the back, you cannot tell where I tacked it. Beautiful way to finish jeans to keep the natural hem. I don't explain it super well. You can kind of see it a little bit more in the video, but I do recommend watching the videos that I link below because this was my first time doing it. I'm obviously not the absolute best at it. Like, clearly you can see it up close. I personally don't mind, but it's not perfect. That's okay with me. A big reason that I thrifted these is because it is a 6-button fly 501. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the rise is literally incredible. Okay, now it just fits phenomenally. Can we take a moment? It hits my waist properly. It hits my back properly. The pockets fit nicely. Do we see this? It fits so perfectly. Ah! I hope this video was informational for y'all. I've been getting requests basically since the original video went up to make an updated video on how I did it. And this one's super long. I feel like the techniques that I used in this are applicable for many pairs of jeans, pants, whatnot. And yeah, if you have a pair of jeans that you really want to alter, just do it. It doesn't hurt. You're not gonna wear them anyway if they're not altered. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want any other content from me, let me know. I'd be happy to see if I could make it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Also subscribe, like, comment, all of that stuff, and bye-bye.